is basically he's Prince Charming. And I haven't had many opportunities to play roles like that. And I know people like that are just, very, very honorable, very respectful towards their family, and very responsible towards what he's supposed to do in life. And I think that's a very, I guess, a very quintessential part of being Asian, especially from a Chinese heritage. So, yeah, I liked it. I like anything that's very authentically culturally Chinese. Um, for me, I think the hours are okay actually for Ghost Bride. I mean, I had tougher hours. I've been on shoots that were very short, a couple of scenes, and I've been on shoots that went on for 20, 30 hours straight. So, but actually, when you're doing something you love, I think especially on a film set, you just get into kind of this flow of things. You don't really feel the time pass. You don't feel the cold. You don't feel pain. You don't feel tired. Nothing at all. You're just very engaged in the work. And so, and so, it's after work is finished that you really feel exhausted. So I mean, Malaysia is such a very eclectic place to film in. I've been to Malaysia before, just as a traveler, as a backpacker, actually, more than 10 years ago. But this time we got to explore a lot of the places I hadn't been to before, especially ones where there was a real old Chinese legacy in those cities. So we went from Penang to Yibao to Taiping and then to Johor. And I haven't been to Taiping or Johor before. And Penang, we got to explore a lot of the heritage buildings, like we filmed in the Blue Mansion. So that was great. The streets are just filled with smells of good food, just watching all the cultures mingle, and then stories. We had some funny moments, sometimes even haunted moments when we were filming in the Blue Mansion. We all shared stories, get into the mood of things between cast members, like Guang Tian, who played my brother Tianqing.
Mm-hmm.
He's real sensitive to like the spiritual side of things, and also Teresa, who played Isabella, my wife. She's also quite, let's say, easily frightened. I think it depends on how you define supernatural, because I believe that we don't know everything that exists out there right now. So anything beyond that is supernatural, or just too small. It's like sometimes, sometimes I think there's things that we'll never understand, right? Like you don't expect a little insect, like an ant crawling on the ground, to ever understand what quantum physics is, no matter how hard the ant tries to study and how hard he works. It's just beyond his grasp. So I think those things that are beyond our grasp, that's what the supernatural is. And we can just feel it out with our emotions and go with our gut instinct. If people like it, I definitely think there will be a season. There's a lot of unfinished business in The Ghost Bride.
Yes.
It was so short, 6 episodes, and we had a lot of stuff to tell, and there's so much background in the story. If season 2 happens, I hope Tianjin comes back. I really enjoyed his performance. Such an interesting character, right? Yeah, so that's it. There's a lot of unfinished business. I hope there's a season 2. We'll see. Well, Liu Kang's a character that's been with Mortal Kombat since the very beginning, so he has a very long history and a very extensive backstory. So that was fun to work off of. He's quite a special character. He's quite a special character too, in that his heart is probably even more pure than Tianbai's. He's just after one thing, is to serve his lord and to fight for justice. And that's very much my thing. I got into a lot of fights when I was a kid because I just didn't like it when people pick on the weak, and I didn't consider myself weak. but I lost a lot of fights too. But I always fought for what I thought was right and what I think is true. So that's very Liu Kang. James Wan actually he produced Mortal Kombat,
Yes.
and he's very supportive of the project. He gave me a lot of confidence in taking on this role. But our director Simon McQuaid, he is very devoted to this world. I think he's stories. It should be good. It should be very fun. There's lots of fighting. It was definitely harder to film than Ghost Bride. There's a lot of fighting, more fighting than I've ever done before. It was exciting. Beautiful places to film in. Great cast. Really nice to work on. One of the best experiences I've ever had. Representation means equity to me. Representation means equity in that we should get what we properly deserve, because it's very hypocritical for a country, a nation, a culture to brand itself as a tapestry of different cultures, as a country based on freedoms, as a country based on opportunities, as a country based on acceptance, yet reject some of its own people. I mean, Asian Americans are Americans. Asian Canadians are Canadians. So why aren't they getting the same opportunity, same chance to represent themselves, their emotions, their feelings, their stories? So that's very difficult for me, because not being able to express yourself is the toughest thing for me to handle. The other thing that representation means to me is survival. I think for a better future, or a future that we can survive in, so we don't all die, because if we don't share our culture, don't tell our stories, don't make each other understand our own cultures, then we're going to have fighting all the time. And more than half the world is Asian, right? And American culture is the dominant culture right now and the dominant force in the world. So these two giant forces, if we don't come together and be able to hug, then we're going to come together and fight, and that's not going to have a good outcome. It's as simple as that. Yeah, I think it's definitely increasing. I think we're getting momentum, and I think we've made tremendous progress in the last couple of years. But I also don't think we're quite there yet. I think we still have a long way to go, and I think we need to do a lot of work and support each other a lot more to be able to get there. I think one is authenticity. I think we cannot give up on portraying stories as authentically and with nuance as much as we can, because it's, as you see on, if you're I think you're well versed in what real Asian culture, or what a real Asian family or a Chinese family is like, right, Jane?
Yes.
So when you see something on TV that seems like a stereotype, it's very right. You make that face. It's very jarring to you. It's like someone does this to your ear and you get snapped out of the story, right? So I think that's very important. I think to be able to do that, we need to help studio executives, if they're white, if they come from a different culture. We need to help them understand what an authentic Asian group or an Asian family or an Asian person, an Asian character would behave like, because they don't understand. I think they have good intentions to support it, because it's obvious there's a lot of Asian money to be made, and if you want to make the bottom line, then you need to get at that money. But it's hard for them to support and basically put on a hat and say you're Asian. No one's going to believe it. So we need to help them as Asians who are in the know, who understand what it's properly about, just help them understand. That's very important. And then support ourselves, of course, because there's not enough room out there for infighting. If we're struggling and infighting amongst ourselves and stabbing each other in the back, then we're never going to get anywhere. Rather than only physical, I like characters that are quite psychological, actually, that really have some substance in them, psychological or emotional. Because even if it's physical, I think it should come from a very emotional place, right? They should have a root for that physical thing. But yeah, things that change, characters that portray something that changes the worldview. I like things that don't flat out tell people how to feel or what to want. I think those things are kind of like pornography. It's not really art because it's so clear that it's directing people in a certain direction. But I'm more and more leaning towards things that tap into something else. I don't need to tell you what you want because you complete the work for me. When you see it, you should have your own interpretation and know how it affects yourself. In that way, I think it makes the art more personal and more fun. Well, I was hoping to do some more work in China, but right now I'm just doing more charity work for them to try to help contain this very dangerous and very pernicious and sad situation that's going on in Asia and expanding towards the world. I hope people have more acceptance and less xenophobia, because to get through this thing, the coronavirus, we really need to come together and help each other out rather than separate each other and not communicate. Otherwise, there's a few interesting Western roles and maybe some European roles projects that I'm looking at right now. So I don't know. And the most exciting thing is, in this industry, you never know, right? So there's a lot of unknowns, and sometimes it's a good surprise, sometimes it's a disappointment. And there's a lot of value in disappointment too, so I need to learn to enjoy that as well. All right. Hey, readers that are on Jane Star, it's been a pleasure and a delight chatting with you guys. Thanks for your time. I hope you have me on again.